My name is Phil Andrew, and welcome to my new podcast, Filling in the Gaps. Now, before I get started, let me explain what this podcast is all about. Here, we're going to talk about and really dig deep into topics like Filipino culture and society. Now, if you're a fellow Filipino, hi! Nice to meet you, and thank you so much for listening. Now, I'm pretty sure you already know most of what I'm going to say here, so I'm just here to, fill in the gaps. Just imagine a bookshelf with some books that belong to a set, but the numbers aren't in the right order, right? So I'm just here to quote, fill in those gaps on the bookshelf with the right books so that the collection is complete, basically. So, in other words, I will help you guys learn more as much as possible about Filipino society and culture. I will talk about anything and everything about it, both the good and the bad, okay? So, my friend, if this is something you're interested in, then you're in the right place. Now, let's talk about toxic Filipino traits. I chose to start this podcast with this topic because I think we should always talk about how some of these habits have, gotten so bad that we ignore how harmful they are and treat them like they're normal until we accept them as quote unquote part of our culture, you know? But don't get me wrong, okay? I mean, yes, Filipinos have a reputation for, being cheerful, sociable, and incredibly hospitable. We are also well known for many admirable qualities like, ability to sing, our beauty pageants, and our stunning, beautiful beaches and other magnificent tourist attractions. But, and that's a big but, let's be honest, you guys. Filipinos also have some annoying and bad habits that sometimes give the country a bad name. These habits not only bring us down as individuals, but also the whole country. Now, Filipinos have had the same way of thinking for hundreds of years. We follow the traditions, attitudes, and even actions of our ancestors without question. Why? Because it's part of our way of life. But in today's modern world, old and wrong ways of thinking can no longer be ignored. Filipinos have been living with and complaining about the same toxic culture for years. But we don't do anything about it because our families thought it was okay. Still, we ask ourselves every day, why are the Philippines still where they were 30 or 40, 80, or even 100 years ago? Now, maybe we already have the answers within ourselves. But first, a disclaimer. Not all Filipinos share these characteristics, okay? In fact, some of these traits may be shared by all people, not just us Filipinos. So, here we go. Number 1, Filipino time. I know, right? Some Filipinos have to live on Filipino time, but we sometimes use, quote, Filipino time as an excuse for being rude or not caring if we waste other people's time. People now set the time at least an hour ahead because they think Filipinos will be late. Filipinos are often late, whether they are at work, school, or just, getting together with family and friends for fun. This habit has become so common that it has a name, which is Filipino time. Even though it's not okay in most situations, many Filipinos still do it or don't mind it because, like I said, it's part of our culture. Filipino time means that it is anywhere from minutes to hours behind the standard time. It's like, having our own clock, even though we know that the world standard time is the right time. Now, to be fair, not all Filipinos tend to be late. Even though, quote unquote, being late has become a stereotype for Filipinos, there are still people who show up on time to meetings, And historians say that this way of thinking actually goes back to the Spanish idea of siesta, which is still around today. Now, finding out where the habit came from is the best way to understand it. Now, would you believe it's connected to things that happened 100 years ago? One good reason for the habit is that the Spanish had an effect on culture of the Philippines. During the Spanish colonial period, tardiness was actually a status symbol, and the last person to arrive was regarded as important. Now, the idea has been passed down from generation to generation until it is a habit. Now, in modern society, bad traffic, especially in big cities like Metro Manila, is another reason why people are late. Most of the time, traffic is unpredictable, so you might be late or early for your appointment. Now, traffic has always been a problem for both commuters and people who own cars, so it's likely that thousands of people have used it as an excuse for being late. But that's still not a good reason, since you can always figure out how long the trip will take and leave earlier than usual. But there maybe still be other things to think about, like car accidents or, emergency situations. However, some people choose to be late instead of being late because of traffic. It's called being fashionably late, quote unquote. If it's for an appointment, it's not a good reason and never will be. But if it's for something like a party, it's fine. And that's sadly acceptable for us Filipinos, and we should change that. Okay? Imagine showing up to a party in a stylish way until only to find out that no one is there to see it because you were there before everyone else, We all know that being late can only lead to bad things, like missing out on opportunities. Even though it sounds like a cliche, the quote, "the early bird gets the worm," is the best way to describe this situation. For example, you did not get the job because you were late to the interview, but the company has already decided to hire someone else before you gave your best shot. It is definitely a missed chance. It's like having a disease. It can spread to other people in your network because it is contagious. If you're always late, the people you're meeting with won't see any reason to be on time. It will make them think that everyone else will also be late, so they might as well be late too. It can get in the way of everyone's plans and could hurt professional relationships. Not being on time is not a good quality, okay? And it's even sadder that it's called quote unquote Filipino time, even though people from all over the world are late. But instead of following Filipino time, why not change the system? Yeah? Be there on time and stick to the plan you make. This way you can help get rid of the idea of being late in the Philippines and be the first person in your office to show how to be on time. Calling this long-standing habit Filipino time sets a standard for all Filipinos and the Philippines as a whole, not just for those who do the habit. It shows that Filipinos don't care about the time of other people. It makes people outside of the Philippines think that Filipinos are unreliable and not good enough to do business with because we can't even be bothered to show up on time. Now, people often think of Filipinos as being late, but not all of us do. Like again, I said, Filipinos who are on time respect other people's time and want to make a change. Don't think it's fair to call it Filipino time. Not all of us are late. Hopefully, you guys, other people will realize how bad it is to be late and start being responsible and disciplined so that the quote Filipino time is always on time will no longer be a stereotype. Okay, number 2, crab mentality. Oh my goodness, this is so common, and you know that, I know that, you know that. One example is when someone is more successful than you, and you start to spread rumors about them to make them seem less important. And remember when you wanted to skip school and wanted your friends to do the same? Remember that? Yep, that is a crabby way of thinking. People with a crab mentality react negatively to those who get ahead of them in their thoughts, words, or actions, even though they don't think it will help them directly. For example, someone with a crab mentality might try to discourage or sabotage a friend who is starting to do well in school because they are angry about how hard it has been for them. The name of this idea comes from a story about crabs in a bucket who can't get out because they keep pulling back any crabs who get to the top. So that's why it's called crab mentality. You keep pulling someone else. Now, if you have this trait, you don't want other people to be better than you, and when they are, you try to bring them down. The quote, "misery loves company," is another way to say it. Filipinos often think this way, especially when they don't feel safe. Now, instead of being happy for someone's success, We pick at the little things that are wrong to bring them down. And in some ways, having a crab mentality also encourages unhealthy competition. Filipinos spend a lot of time talking about other people instead of doing things that could help them grow and get better than their competitors. It's how they try to get people to stop thinking about how bad they are by pointing out the bad things other people do. Now, how do we avoid being like crabs? You ask? Well, when it comes to this, you can avoid having a crab mentality by following the golden rule. Simple, you guys, which says that you should treat others the same way you want to be treated. Using the golden rule in the context of the crab mentality could lead you to ask yourself, how would I want others to treat me if I had done this? And then act in that way. Now, if someone close to you has done something big that you also wanted to do, you might not be able to be truly happy for them, honestly. But even if you can't change your mind, you can't be happy for them, you can still change what you do. You can act happy for that person, or at least try to make them feel bad. Or at least try not to make them feel bad. But overall, to avoid crab mentality, you should realize that you have it. And once you realize that, deal with the underlying problems that cause it, and maybe also change your attitude in other ways, like by focusing on what you can learn from other people's successes. Even if you can't avoid this way of thinking, you don't have to let it control your actions. For example, you can make sure not to say anything negative that is not necessary. Number 3, and this is very relatable, English as basis of intelligence. I'm laughing because this is so true, okay? People with this trait make assumptions about how smart someone is based on how well they speak English. For example, a student who has difficulty articulating their thoughts in English may give the impression that they are not good, but when asked to explain their thoughts in Filipino, they may do so very effectively. Why is it toxic, you ask? English is a way to communicate, we all know that. But it has nothing to do with the meaning or even the content of the message. So it's a bad idea to judge a person or even a statement based on how well or badly it's said in English, okay? We all know that we have to use and speak English in order to talk to other people, especially people from other countries. And English is thought of as the second language in the Philippines. And we learned how to speak and talk with it when we were very young, remember that? And then grew when we went to school and learned most of our subjects in English. Some people also have trouble with this topic, which is understandable since English is not our first and main language. Now, most people think that a certain person is smart because he or she spoke English so well and fluently. Some of them are smart, but being smart isn't just about knowing English. This is also true when people from the north, for example, of the country, who speak Tagalog, don't care about us, Visayans or Cebuanos, and sometimes even look down on us because we speak a different language or we hardly speak Tagalog. The point is that we are all born different and unique. We are good at something that other people are not good at. There are also times when your strength is someone else's weakness and your weakness is someone else's strength. So there's a thing called quote unquote multiple intelligence. You can see that not everyone is the same. We can't just judge someone based on their race, culture, how they look, or other things. We are made unique. Learn to respect the uniqueness of others and not to judge them before getting to know them. As a famous saying goes, again, do not do to others what you don't want done to you. If you wanted to be respected, you had to respect other people. Number 4, lack of self-discipline. Oh my gosh. Filipino culture is often toxic because people don't have much discipline. This is because everyone wants things to be easy. So, to save time, Filipinos break the law. Filipinos choose to close their eyes and ignore ordinances or laws that are meant to keep us safe. Now, we have rules and laws so that everyone can live together in peace. But most Filipinos, though, have a tendency to break the rules in order to get what they want. Now, there's a theory that explains why Filipinos don't have discipline or follow rules, and it has to do with our culture. Our ancestors had a mindset of quote unquote self righteous disobedience because they were mistreated by different colonizers for so long. And the way Filipinos break the law to save time shows this. For example, even if a sign says no jaywalking, Filipinos will still cross the deadly road there because it's easier and makes them feel more righteous. Also, here are some reasons why many Filipinos lack discipline. One thing is overly democratic way of life. Remember when the Philippines got rid of martial law, they could not have been happier to embrace democracy. And they learned to, follow freedom more, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong, but still, too much of anything is bad. Some people have forgotten that their rights end when the rights of others begin. Some men think it's okay to urinate or pee on someone else's wall, for example. Some people who call themselves activists show how they feel by destroying public and even private properties. They don't realize that these things belong to the people, not the government. Without people like this realizing that democracy has its limits, it will be hard to find discipline in the community, okay? So again, too much is bad. Also, another reason is lack of discipline at home or having no rules at home. Parents are the first teachers a child should have. Children should learn good values and how to behave at home before anywhere else. But many parents today can't keep their kids in line. As a country's culture becomes more like the West, the Americans, children become more independent, and many of them can now give their parents the back off sign when they feel like their freedom is being threatened. On the other hand, some parents don't have the time or energy to sit down with their children even every time they do something wrong and tell them what they did wrong. Because of these things, a lot of Filipino kids grow up to be adults who don't care as much about rules and laws. As an example, I've seen that, children who grow up in families where, proper trash disposal is always done have a lot of respect for the environment. On the other hand, people who don't learn at home to throw trash in the trash, don't mind leaving trash around. So you can always tell that, there's no discipline in their homes in the first place. Another reason why we have lack of discipline is because we have no role models. Some of us doesn't have role models. Filipinos don't take discipline seriously because they don't understand how important it is. How could they when government officials don't even follow the rules they've made? Like under the table deals, buying votes, and giving VIP special treatment at public events and meetings are just some of the common ways that the government is corrupt and takes away the power of discipline in the society. Some people who enforce the law are not good examples either. For example, traffic cops who are paid to let people go who break the law, and police officers who are involved in crimes like kidnapping and drug trafficking. People don't see a reason to follow rules or even take the lead to make things better because they know that nothing will change if it does not come from the top. Another reason why is we have no strict implementation. One reason why some Filipinos don't follow the rules is that laws are not enforced strictly enough. No matter how good the rules are, nothing will happen if the group putting them into place doesn't have the power to make people follow them, okay? As long as people don't see any harm in breaking the law, they won't follow it. For example, pedestrians usually don't care about the no jaywalking rule in places where there aren't any strict law enforcers or signs with fines. But People tend to follow the rules in cities and other places where breaking the rules can lead to harsh punishments. Now, you guys, I know there are still a lot of bad behaviors or traits that Filipinos have that I wanted to discuss with you, but I don't want this first episode to be too long, okay? So keep an eye out for part 2 of this topic, okay? Which I will probably upload this week or the next. I just started this one because just to get it out of the way, and I hope you enjoy that one, and I hope you will be waiting for part 2, okay? So I guess that's all for now, you guys. I really appreciate you listening to my first episode. I hope to see you on my next, okay? Also, if you like true crime stories, I have another podcast called Don't Listen to Phil. Now, if you're interested, go ahead and enjoy. Okay, so have a great day ahead. Even if you have a lot to do today, don't forget to do something nice for someone else, okay? And remember, be better. Bye!